Welcome to Make My Vision Real, a local resource for starting and growing your small business. The show's founder and host is Susan Swartzwelder, a small business specialist who helps people start and grow the business of their dreams. Today's show is sponsored by Newbury Business Park, a Geauga County incubator for growing companies and business startups. Learn more at newburybizpark.com. Now get ready to make your vision real. Here's Susan Swartzwelder.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Make My Vision Real. This is a weekly show that focuses on helping people launch and grow small businesses. Our topic today is called Chasing Time. We have a special guest today, Lisa Mallis. She is a time strategy visionary and founder of SystemSavvy Consulting. Lisa combines her experience in secondary education and direct sales with her love of schedules, systems, and all things time management to create SystemSavvy Consulting. She is a master at cutting to the heart of overwhelm to help you gain control of your schedule and experience life. For over 10 years, Lisa has assisted overextended business owners implement concrete techniques that can be applied immediately to their daily lives. Lisa's enthusiasm for finding solutions is contagious, and her commitment to empowering you to find success is transformational. Lisa finds the specific technique that works for each individual client. She teaches them how to increase productivity by realigning values with tasks, and how to balance family and career through effective scheduling, and how to design the life of their dreams. Welcome, Lisa. Thanks for coming to the show.
Thanks, Susan. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, as you know, you've probably listened to a show or two before. And so what we like to do on this show is inspire people by telling your story about how you got into entrepreneurship. And then we transform into another segment of the show that tells about what you do to help small business, because you ride both sides of the fence there. You are an entrepreneur, and I want to make sure that we talk about that story, but then you also help entrepreneurs, and we definitely want to talk about the specialty that you bring to the table in helping make their visions real. So let's start with you. And one of the first things I like to learn about is what you did before you started your own company and got into the entrepreneurial world.
I was a high school math teacher, and then I became an athletic director. And while I was an athletic director, I was also leading a team of women in a direct sales industry.
And what do you want to say?
Sure. They're not a sponsor of the show, so I wasn't sure.
That's okay. You can give them a plug.
I am a Mary Kay consultant, actually,
okay.
still.
Great.
And then I transitioned out of there a little bit and moved back into the classroom in a tutoring capacity. So I was a math tutor, and then I was a study skills tutor. And then I started my own business.
And so when you started doing this study skills tutor, were you doing that as a consultant, or were you working for a school at the time?
I started out as a school, and then became a consultant.
Okay. And how long did you do the consultative approach to the tutoring? Was that something that you stopped working for the school and then you were a consultant? Was there a definite break there? I mean, how did that work?
No, it seems like many of my things just kind of morph into each other.
Yeah.
I had been teaching study skills in teaching standardized test prep for since I was in the classroom. So starting like 1995. And I did that a little bit on the side. And then transitioned away and transitioned back, and then was doing some of that full time when I left the school system. And now still keep my hand in it a little bit part time.
Yeah, because you have credentials that you don't necessarily want to let slide, right? I mean, you work so hard. Yeah, I bet.
Yes,
I bet.
Absolutely, I do. I'm still a certified math teacher. I still hold my license for secondary administration. So principal, athletic director. So yeah, I hate to let all of that go, though that's not the focus necessarily of my business now. It's certainly a huge part of my journey to get here.
Well, sure. And, women especially are so multifaceted. You know a lot of the same women I know. And, I know one woman who works for a major corporation in Geauga County. She's also a farmer. She's also a sugar producer, maple sugar. And she has a hobby. And so there's like all of these different facets to us and women especially. I mean, men probably a little bit, but we're multitaskers. We don't do just one thing.
Right.
It just doesn't seem natural for us for some reason. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit then about why did you decide to start a company of your own and why not work for somebody else?
Through my journey of so many jobs, and we won't mention how many different school districts that we kept bouncing around to, I know that my personality is high energy, easily bored, and I like to set my own structure. And I like to be in charge of me. Not many employers are thrilled with that.
Yeah.
And it's not even so much that it's I thrive on creating my own environment. And that's, I was having a difficult time replicating what made me the happiest.
Right.
Working for someone else.
Right.
And I knew it was just time to do.
Just to step out.
And do it and do my thing my way.
And so how did you become the time strategy visionary, quote unquote? That's a unique title. I love it. And how'd you come up with that?
I knew that as I went through my journey, I knew that there were pieces and parts of everything that I've done up till now that I really, really enjoyed. But I couldn't quite figure out how it all fit. And so as I'm going through the process, I'm realizing, the pieces of me that I like structure. I like working with people and see the light bulb turn on. You can't give me a schedule that I can't figure out how to make it more efficient and make it work. And I started to embrace that is part of my brilliance. That's not something everybody has.
I know I don't.
Well, but from working with so many entrepreneurs that people tend to think that what they're good at, everyone is good at. And so I just assumed everyone could do what I could do.
Right.
And then started to realize along the way that no, that's not the case. And so while those revelations were bouncing around in my head, I was also struggling with the idea of how do you bring what you know and can do well to people, and didn't realize that there was actually a whole profession that does that. There are people who specialize in time management.
Yeah.
I know, go figure. And so as I started to explore that avenue more, I realized that I'm not the typical person who specializes in time management. I'm not so much like a productivity expert per se, because it's, to me, being able to help someone save 2 hours a week is great. But it's more than that. And when we talk about the visionary part, it's why are you trying to save 2 hours a week? What is it you want to do?
Right.
And so when I look at time strategy visionary, it's the time management piece. It's figuring out your strategy so that you can live your vision.
Right.
So that's where it all came together.
So it's bringing both sides of the coin together. It's like, okay, yeah, we can carve out more time out of your week. We can become more efficient with your scheduling, but what's the purpose?
Exactly.
What are you tying to that? What's making it special?
Right.
Why is that time needed?
Exactly. Early in my professional career as an athletic director and leading a direct sales team and going to grad school. I know.
Wow.
I know. I was jamming in. I mean, that's 80 hours a week. Easy.
I know. And as an entrepreneur, I know what it's like to work 80 hours a week because I work it every week.
Right. And so I could fit all that stuff in.
Right.
But I never really identified where was I trying to go. I was getting somewhere fast.
Right.
But I didn't know.
Well, they say if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there, right?
No. And I was definitely going down that road of getting somewhere. But I didn't really know what I wanted.
So it wasn't purposeful.
No. But I mean,
I was
great at all of those
jobs.
At
all of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when part of my journey was that I, after working that many hours, became ill and had to take that step back. When you took the step back and started to reevaluate, you're like, where am I? Like, I was forced to evaluate my life.
Right.
And then it was like, wait a minute, where am I going?
Yeah.
Just because I can cram in more things than anybody else in a single day.
Doesn't mean you have to.
It doesn't mean that I want to.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should, exactly. Which is a favorite. I use that line all the time with my clients. I had a new call today, as a matter of fact. And, one of the things that I tell people is that just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? I'm great at bookkeeping, but doesn't mean that I should be doing bookkeeping.
Right.
It's not really where my talents lie. Right. So just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Absolutely. And so it took me a long time. So those of you listening, please learn from my example.
And being control freaks like we are, right?
I know, exactly. It just took a long time for me to realize that there was more. You had to have a vision and you had to have a structure to help you stay in your vision. So my vision now is not 14-hour work days. But my personality is such that if I don't create that structure around myself, I will slide right back into that.
Okay, so let's taking you for an example, right?
Absolutely.
So carving out that extra 2 hours a day or whatever, instead of focusing it in the work schedule, you're taking that time and you're putting it somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Right? Whether it's time with the husband, time with the family, time to yourself. Oh my God.
I know. Go figure.
Let's not even go down that rabbit hole yet.
But that's exactly, those are the things that I can do now that I was unable to do before, because at first I had no idea where I wanted to go. Then when I started to figure out where I wanted to go, I couldn't keep myself on that path. I needed some sort of a structure.
Right.
And then once I was able to develop that, that's when I started to realize I'm not alone. There are a lot of people out there like me.
Right.
And so that's where that whole time strategy visionary.
So that's where all that
That's
came
where
in.
all of that came from.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes perfect sense. And so in your startup phase, when you were making the transition from counseling and tutoring and all of that into being the time strategy visionary, what was the hardest part of making that transition and actually getting the business to start up?
I think there were a lot of hardest parts. I want to pick just one, and I don't know that I can, so I'll give you a couple.
Okay, that sounds good.
One of those was just knowing what like a checklist of what it is I needed to do. Do I need special licenses? An accountant, a lawyer, can I just write my own contract, or should I actually have one that, came from someone who knows what they're doing? Those types of administrative, structural things around a business. Because in my opinion, there's different parts of your business.
Right.
And you can be great at what you do, but if you can't figure out how to sustain the business part, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Well, and that, in some of our early shows, we had an accountant and an attorney and an insurance agent, and all of these people, all of the pros that I have on the startup list. These are the people that you need to have on your team that are going to help you carve out that foundation of where you need to go. And so what I'm hearing from you is that knowing that, could you figure out how to write a contract? Probably. You're an intelligent woman. You've been, well educated. You know what needs to be said in the contract. But as what most people don't know that have never had to work with a contract before, it's not necessarily what you say, but it's how you say it, right? And so sometimes, a handshake isn't really the best approach. And so, having that foundation is really, really important. And being honest with yourself. How about that one? Being honest with yourself that you can't do it all yourself. Right. Nor should you.
Exactly. Because, my thought was, well, I'm going to be a home-based business owner. I'll have no overhead. Magically. I'm not buying inventory.
Right.
I'm not renting space. So I'll be able to make this transition from the traditional workspace to my own. And there'll be no outlay of money because I can do it all myself.
And how'd that work out for you?
Fabulous.
Yeah.
I say tongue in cheek.
Uh-huh.
Because and again, that's that piece when I work with clients that we talk about delegating.
Right.
Not can you do the job, but are you the best person
Right.
to do the job?
Should you be doing it?
Should you be doing it? And so that was one piece that was certainly something I didn't anticipate starting my own business.
I didn't either. And and everybody can say these are the things that you need to delegate to somebody else, but you really don't believe that until you try to do them yourself,
Right.
And you fail.
Right.
But you got to have that. You got to learn.
Exactly.
There's a learning curve.
And then that second piece for me was really starting to hone in on who I was serving, who my ideal client was. And you know that from back when I was first starting. I will never forget what you said to me when you looked at my website. Which I'll paraphrase for the audience.
Okay.
But you said, wow, it seems like you're serving a lot of people. See?
Yeah.
I paraphrased for you. But that at that time, I thought, oh, well, I love working with high school and college students. I want that to be a piece of my business. And I like working with adults. And I think I want to help them figure out how to cut clutter in their homes and in their lives. And I can do some residential organizing. And I want to.
Right.
And in my mind, those segments of my business were all separate.
Right.
But in reality, it was just a muddled mess.
Yeah, but that's very, very typical of startups. You start making a list of the things that you really like to do, the things that you enjoy working with people in, right? The different disciplines. And that's really what you're talking about is the different disciplines and your different segments of ideal clients, right?
Right.
And as you start to roll out your business model, you start to eventually whittle that down. And I've known you for a while now, and I've seen you whittle it down. And that's the natural progression, though,
Right.
But it is a hard part to do because eventually you're letting go of things that, if I take this off my website, somebody might call me, and then I don't want to turn business away.
Right. Because at the beginning,
right. You want that business coming through the
Yes.
door. You want validation of why you exist.
Right.
But it's really hard to keep that focus. Okay, and we're already getting the music that we have to take a commercial break. So we will be back in just a few minutes. So please stay tuned because we're going to get into some really awesome chat with Lisa. We are back with Lisa Mallis, time strategy visionary. She is giving us some background on how she became an entrepreneur. And in this segment, we're going to talk about some real strategies that you'll be able to implement into your life today. So, Lisa, thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
When we left for the commercial break, we were talking about some of the big obstacles that we face as we start up. And so one of the other questions before we move into the next segment is I just wanted to finish up that one question. With the struggles that we all have in startup, we all need that support. And so where did you find your biggest source of support as you were starting up and that will help others find their big source of support?
I went a couple different routes. One place I went to right away was Score. I knew that, like I said, I thought I could start my entire business on like $1. So, woohoo, Score's free.
Yeah,
so they were
right.
in my budget.
And they are a good resource too, right?
Yeah, so they're a great resource. And then the other area I went to was to search out people who could give me hands-on knowledge. So one I went to was a mentor in the professional organizing industry because I knew that I was getting into the time management, and that's a subset of that industry. So I went there for coaching and mentoring. And then the other place I went to was to you because I knew you knew how to figure out those nuts and bolts and how to help me start to identify my why.
Right.
I will never forget that presentation where I met you.
Yeah.
Identify your why.
Oh, I remember it was the library.
It was the library.
It was the library class on finding your why.
Yes.
Yes. That was a fun class.
Yes.
I still do that. I still do that presentation. It's so important to know your why.
And that was, they always say that things will happen in your life and you may not know why then. And that was a 3-part series.
That's right.
And I could not make the first 2.
Right.
And I thought, well, I'll just kind of sneak in the third. Maybe no one will notice that I didn't come to the first 2. And then I made you, I waited until everybody left to make you sit with me and answer my questions.
I do. That was a long time ago. Oh my gosh. It's amazing how far and how fast everybody has come during that time. My gosh, that's great. Well, let's talk about some of your clients now.
Okay.
Oh, and speaking of the why, that comes from a book by Simon Sinek called Start With Why.
Yes.
And so if you're interested, go to startwithwhy.com and listen to his TED Talk. It's awesome.
That is so good.
It is so good. And I recommend that to everybody. But let's talk about your clients now and how you help them. And so what are some of the challenges that your clients face and why would they come to Lisa Mallis?
Most of my clients are in a stage of overwhelm. They may. There we go.
See, the tables are turning now, right?
Let me tell you all about what I do, Susan. But they may not be able to identify why they're overwhelmed, or they may know why they're overwhelmed, but they don't know how to get out. And so they're working so hard every day trying to get somewhere. Some may know where that somewhere is. Some may not have any idea where that somewhere is, but they all know that it has to be a better way. There just has to be a better way than what they're doing. It can't be this hard.
Right. Because everything that I teach is around simplicity. And even I have those moments where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed with stuff. And I sit and I spin. I call it sitting and spinning, where it's like, I know that I have this big long list of things that I really need to attend to. And I'm so busy fretting over the fact that I have this big long list that I can't focus my brain. So let's talk a little bit about the symptoms of that. Okay. So let's give the audience some idea of what those symptoms are like.
It's exactly like what you're saying. Or let me back up for a second. First off, you are not alone.
That's always a good one, right? Starting out the 12-step program. You are not alone.
You are not alone. And what you're feeling is neurobiological. It's not psychological.
And that's important to know.
It is.
Say that again.
It is. It's neurobiological.
Okay.
That feeling of overwhelm, what happens in your brain is you move from the prefrontal cortex to the limbic part of your brain. And so you move from the logical piece to the emotional piece.
Right?
Yes. And so what happens is you're so overwhelmed. You have that feeling. For some people, it's fogginess. For others, it's like scatterbrain, like 3 seconds here, 3 seconds here, 3 seconds there, and you can't do anything. And so what do? You go take a nap, right?
I'm really tired. I can't take this anymore.
I can't focus.
Right.
I'm feeling like I'm walking through fog.
Right.
I have so much on my plate. I don't know what to do. And for some people, you just sit down and cry.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't know what to do anymore.
Especially
I can't even identify what's wrong anymore. And so you cry. Well, that's because you're in that emotional part. You're making decisions.
It's moved to emotional instead of logic.
Yeah, you're making decisions based on comfort.
Right.
And it's like,
yes. Yes, that makes so much sense.
Yes. So the key is to be able to, let me say the key. One of the keys is just to be able to recognize, okay, this is what's happening.
Right.
It's okay. And then be able to move into strategy.
And so give it some space. Acknowledge the fact.
Acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And acknowledge that there's nothing wrong with me. This is my brain. And it may seem
my brain on overload.
Exactly. Because it may seem a little odd to think like you can disassociate yourself from you and your brain. But I think it takes a lot of the pressure off when you just say, oh, well, this is science.
Right.
This is how my brain reacts.
Right. My coach tells me when I go through a similar thing about can I do this or can't I do this? They call it monkey mind. This is brain overload, overwhelm.
Yes.
So it's a little bit different.
But very similar. And I know myself that I have a tendency to shut down. And when I get way overdone, I start shutting down and I start saying, you know what, it's not worth it. Yep. And when you say it's not worth it, you've lumped in everything.
That's right.
That's paying the bills.
Yep.
That's new clients. That's a presentation you have in an hour. It's
getting the leaves off the lawn. It's weeding the garden. It's feeding the cat, cleaning up the kitchen. I'm done. I'm going.
I'm done with all of it. Yes. Yeah. And so for some people, it's take a nap. For some people, it's cry. For some people, it's chocolate. Everyone has different ways.
Everybody has their outlets, right?
Right. But that's a feeling of overwhelm.
Right. Okay. So now that we're clear on that, now what do you do? So how do you overcome these challenges? And I know you have a program for this,
I do. And so I call it the AWE program. So it's AWE.
Okay.
Which stands for awareness. And then the W is for work. And then the E is for evaluation.
Okay, so how does this work?
So how it works is your A part, your awareness part, is what we've just been talking about. Oh, wait a minute, I'm overwhelmed. Now what do I do? Or before we get to that stage, it's I'm feeling overwhelmed. Or it's when this, and this happens to me, I know that that's going to lead to this. So I need to set
you get better about it? You get to identify those stages, those different...
Not magically.
It takes work, as always, right?
No magic
self-awareness.
But when you can pull yourself back and say, wait a minute, what's going on that I'm feeling this way? Or even like bigger picture, like this transition I went through. What is it I really want with my life? Then how do I get there? So that A part is identifying your big, don't let yourself crawl down in the box with all the problems.
Right.
Step outside the box and start looking down at, okay, these are the challenges I'm feeling right now, but they're the symptoms. Where's the root problem coming from? Where's the big piece? And then once you start to build that different awareness, then you can start moving to the work phase.
Right.
So in my life, I built the awareness of this is the life I want to live. Never built the work phase or the structure phase around it and went right back to my old ways. The same thing can happen. Many of my clients, when they come to me, have done that circle 3, 4, 5 times. And so then we say, okay, here's where we are. Let's start to build awareness. And so people will say, how do you build awareness? Because it's such a out there.
It is. It's kind of a woo-woo thing, but
somewhat. And it's definitely for someone left-brained like I am, not concrete at all.
Right.
And so there's a couple of things. Some of them I'll just be like, here's some questions to help you start to think. Because I don't do well with just sit there and think about it for an hour.
Right.
What's it? Think about what?
That's been really tough. I've been practicing that now for about a year is, what's really going on. And, you have a tendency to talk to yourself a little bit more.
Yes.
But the interesting thing is that it does improve things, where you can say, this is really silly, okay, because this is really just a list of tasks. And so, babies and children are not dying. Right.
Exactly.
And not getting it done isn't the end of the world. And so then once I take myself off the hook for the end of the world, I'm okay. And then I can cope.
Right. Exactly. And so when you're building awareness, there's that piece of, okay, what's my big picture? Where do I want to be? Where am I at now? There's also that small stuff throughout the day. A lot of my clients, I will advise them to set a timer on their computer for every half hour.
Oh, okay.
Because they'll say, where'd my day go?
Right.
I'll say, I don't know, wasn't with you. And so that helps them build awareness because when it goes off at the half hour, they're saying, okay, what am I doing?
Right.
And what was I supposed to be doing?
Right.
And are they the same? So that's that awareness piece.
Okay.
Then we work into the W.
Okay. And the W is for work.
And it's not work hard. It's work efficiently. It's work smarter.
Okay.
And so it's things like creating systems and routines. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's figure out the best way to do it and then replicate.
Okay.
It's delegating. It's learning how to say no.
Delegating is huge.
I know. I always say delegation is bad. People think delegation is a bad word.
Oh, no. But because we are doers as women, typically, it's not easy for us to delegate.
No. I hear, I have no one to delegate to. Mm-hmm. I hear no one can do it as good as I can. Mm-hmm. And I hear by the time I teach someone to do it, I could have done it myself.
And your answers to those are?
I have no one to delegate to. I bet you if I gave you $1 million, you could find someone.
Okay.
Just not working. You're just not thinking outside the box.
Right.
And in all reality, by the time you can figure out who to delegate to, you've figured out how to pay for it because you've just made more money. You're getting that stuff off your plate.
Right.
You just have to work through it.
So it's reassociating.
It is. The second one of no one can do it as good as me. Okay, so what? Does it have to be done as good as you, or does it just have to be done? Mm-hmm. Let's figure out where our bar is. I am not advocating lowering the bar.
Right.
But I am saying that some,
doesn't necessarily have to be the same. It just has to be done.
And you just have to be able to articulate to yourself and then to the person whom you delegated to, what does done look like?
Right.
And then by the time you teach someone to do it, you could have done it yourself. You're absolutely right for the first time.
Right.
And maybe the second time. Maybe even the third time. But after that,
so you're looking for those things that are going to be replicated over and over and over again that you're trying to shift through delegation.
Mm-hmm. That to me is the key to effective delegation, because when you delegate a one-off. Yeah. Unless you're delegating to someone who's like my website.
Yeah. Perfect example.
I delegated out designing my website to someone else. It's a one-time thing for me, but that's what she does for a business.
Mm-hmm. And it's definitely more efficient.
Well,
definitely going to.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I know.
Yes.
I know.
Way more efficient.
Yes, I can do blogging, and yes, I can go in and make changes, but what might take me 2 hours takes somebody 10 seconds.
Right. Because they know.
Because they know how to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for me personally, I have a virtual assistant. And so I delegate all my proofreading to her. So granted, everything is different.
Right.
But she, I'll get the invoice at the end of the month. Well, she'll just time up, she'll just work off the retainer. And I'll say, well, wait a minute. And she's like, oh, it took me less than 5 minutes. I'm not even going to charge you for that.
Right.
And I was like, oh, why did it take an hour?
I know.
Easy, and still miss stuff.
Right. Okay, so what's the E part?
So the E is evaluation.
Okay, and what does that mean?
It's taking the time to actually go back and see if what you're doing is working.
Okay, and so are you setting bars of measurement along the way?
It depends on what it is that you're looking at. So for example, if we're talking about delegating, and let's say it's a task that's happening more than once. Let's say my virtual assistant. This is going to be a perfect example. When I delegate to her, I will, at the end of a week, sit down and say, okay, what have I sent her? Is there a way to make it more efficient for her and for me? Mm-hmm. And I'll pull her into that conversation. Mm-hmm. I'll say, is there a way that we could do this a little bit easier for you, for me? Like right now we're sharing things on Google Drive. Mm-hmm. I can put in what I want anytime I want it. Mm-hmm. She can do her end of it anytime she wants to.
Right.
We have identified the deadlines, and so it works. We've changed things. We've been working the system now for 3 months, her and I, and we have adjusted things almost every week. Now I think we are golden.
So it's just a matter of testing things out.
Yeah, it's that
setting
debrief.
A bar, right? Mm-hmm. Setting expectations, just like everything else, right? Exactly. Setting those expectations, right?
Exactly. It's the debrief. Many times we do something and we fall short on that last step.
So what's your favorite strategy for the evaluation?
So my favorite strategy for the evaluation is to actually schedule time in my calendar to do it for. So let's say I'm launching a program, and
that's the AW program that you're talking about.
Yes. So for example, the AW program.
Okay.
That's going to launch in February or in November. Please don't join in February. It's over. It's mid-November.
Okay.
And it's at www.awechallenge.com. And what it is a 30-day accountability program, because many of my clients will say, oh, I'm so overwhelmed with what's going on in the holidays. I'll do that in January.
Right.
So somehow magically we take Christmas, New Year's Day, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Thanksgiving, 5 days, and turn it into 60.
Wow.
And so right before Thanksgiving, we're done, and we don't pick it all back up again until January. So I've created the challenge to go mid-November to mid-December.
Uh-huh.
And so when I've done that, I then put a slot in the end of December to come back and evaluate what worked, what do I want to change, I'll run it again.
Excellent. Very good. Okay, so if you could recommend to the listeners something to do right now, what would it be?
I would say whatever they heard that resonated with them, mark a time in their calendar right now to implement. Whatever it is, implement it.
Okay. And if they have a hard time implementing, they should be calling Lisa Mallis.
That's exactly right. And
strategy visionary.
Well, and possibly what it is that they had a hard time implementing is everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh, we have to take another break, darn it. Okay. So when we come back, we are going to dip into the mailbag and talk a little bit more about strategy. So stay with us. We are back with Lisa Crilley Mallis, time management visionary. I just love that title. Just love it. Okay, and so in the last segment, we were talking about AWE, which is awareness, work, and evaluation phases of shifting into a time management strategy. And we were talking about your AWE challenge. So if somebody wanted to learn more about the AWE challenge, where would they go to do that?
They can go to www.awechallenge.com.
Okay. And that is a 30-day challenge. It's going to run from mid-November to mid-December, and it's to assist you in staying on track through the holidays.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. And the big key is to evaluate when you're all done.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And see how much better the holidays went. I think I'm going to do it.
Good.
I tried last year. I went to your time strategy thing, and I tried, and I did implement a few things, which was good, which was, pre-wrapping the presents instead of waiting till Christmas Eve and trying to bake the pies and do the wrapping and all that stuff. And so they did work. And so I'm going to do the time strategy thing this year.
Good.
That's cool. All right. So this part of the program, we dip into the mailbag and we pull out a couple of questions. I sort of pre-tell the audience who's going to be on the next show. And so they knew that a time management person was going to be with us. And so we did get a couple of questions. And one that I thought was really good that we could probably sink our teeth into is, I am transitioning into a new business and I'm having a little bit of a struggle with timing. Do you have some suggestions on the best way to split my time between the business that I'm leaving, which I'm an employee, to the business that I'm starting, where I'll be a consultant?
Yes. The first thing is I don't know that it's a cut and dried, like spend 2 hours here and,
right.
and 10 hours there.
Never is an easy answer.
I know. So excellent question, listener. I think that it's a matter of taking the time before you do anything to assess your priorities.
Okay.
Give yourself a schedule. I want to be 100% in my new business by this date, or I want to be 50% into my new business by this date.
Okay.
And then work yourself backwards. So Stephen Covey is I'm a huge fan of the late Stephen Covey, and he has a tenet where he talks about begin with the end in mind.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that before.
If you can come up with what is your end, you can then start to work your way backwards to know how much time do I want to put here? How much time do I need to put here? And there's nothing wrong necessarily about moving that end date when you realize that you don't know what you don't know.
Oh my gosh. And I think I have said that on every single show that we've had so far is you don't know what you don't know.
And so depending on your situation, I mean, you may have given your notice, in which case it doesn't matter if you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, right. You're jumping in.
And go.
Yeah, that's right. Jump in with both feet and hold your nose, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I think that when it comes to how do you split your time, you need to know where you want to be to know how much time you need to start to devote. Mm-hmm. And then, and this will be a little bit of a tangent, but it popped in my head, so you get the benefit. People will say, I'm going to do, it's okay, I can work 16 hours now because later I'll be able to enjoy my life. What is your bar? Like,
right.
It's like, oh, well, when I make my first million, well, I made my first million, but when I make my second million, that's when I'm going to start to enjoy my life.
Right. And have you ever known a millionaire to only make 1 million?
No, exactly.
Right?
So I think it's that idea of don't lose yourself as you're trying to create something new.
That's probably really good advice. Don't lose yourself. I mean, really sink your teeth into that and wrap your head around don't lose yourself in all of that.
Right.
Because it's easy to lose yourself when you're driving towards a purpose. When you have that, there's something inside that's driving me to do this. I don't know exactly what it is. That's your purpose. Mm-hmm. That's the passion that is behind it is really the action that is translating that inner purpose that we all have. And I'm finding that my clients and I hate to put age on it, but most of my clients that are going through this kind of thing are around the 40-year mark and up. And, some of my clients are 40, some of them are in their 20s, but the majority 40 and up. And, everybody goes through that, what is my real purpose here? What is it that I really, really want to do? Been in the career, been there, done that. I want to do something meaningful. And when they say meaningful, they really mean meaningful to me personally inside. That's what that's all about.
Right.
So getting back to how you start with the end in mind, that's like, wow, what is the end? And I'm not really sure what, and so when you say the end, you mean the goal. What is the goal? Where is that point that you want to be at? And so starting with the end in mind and saying, okay, I want to be transitioning half-time or be able to launch full-time into my business by X date. How do you wrap your head around that? I'm not really sure. I just feel like it's a tough transition, and at some point, you got to jump the chasm.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
You just got to jump it. But planning and being able to say, I'm going to allocate X number of hours per week towards my new business, and maybe making a list of the things that you want to accomplish and being realistic.
Right.
With the expectation.
Absolutely. So I always tell people, use the rule of 3 when you're doing something new, because like we said, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So if you've made your list up and you have all these tasks on there that you don't know how long they're going to take, and you estimate this will take me, a week, this will take me 3 hours, multiply that by 3. Yeah. So this will take me 3 weeks. This will take me 9 hours.
Right. Instead of 3 hours.
Right. Because now you're realizing, oh, I didn't know what I needed to know. Now I need to go find out someone who does know what I need to know. Right. And now I can sit down and do it.
Right. That's good. That's definitely good. Because then if it doesn't take you 3 times as long, then you're all that further ahead.
Right. And what's wrong with that?
Right. So, okay. Well, let's talk then, if wrapping this up, because we have about 2 minutes. If you had one thing to sum up in 1 minute that you would do differently in your startup, what would that be? If you could go back in time.
If I could go back in time and know what I knew now, I would definitely say, let's pull that target market, figure out who do I work best with? Who can I serve the best, and do all of my marketing and everything around that ideal perfect fit client.
So it's putting on those rose-colored glasses and saying, in a perfect world, world without boundaries, working with my ideal client. It's really identifying that ideal client who is the easiest connection.
Yeah, it's like, where do I do my best work?
Where do I do my best work?
With what people am I the most effective?
Yeah, that's a great way to approach. Yeah.
Who can I serve the best?
Yeah, and focus on those.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great advice. And unfortunately, we have to wrap up this show. And I can't believe it goes this fast. But I want to thank you so much for coming, Lisa. And so if somebody wanted to contact you, how would they get in touch with you?
The best way would be through my website, which is www.system, SYSTEM, savvy, SAVVY, consulting.com.
And your phone number?
440-537-3811.
Perfect. So definitely get in touch with Lisa, and she's going to help get you on a schedule. That's all the time we have today, so be sure to join us next week as we continue our series on building a business around passion and necessity. Our guests will be Karen Bowersox and Maria Dellapina. These are two women who started separate businesses serving the Down syndrome market. They both have tremendously inspirational stories, so you will not want to miss this. Remember, this show is for you, so be sure to send your comments to help@makemyvisionreal.biz. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I wish you good luck and good business. Have a great evening.
You've been listening to Make My Vision Real, a local resource for growing your small business. Visit makemyvisionreal.biz for more information on connecting to local resources. Send your questions for next week's show to help@makemyvisionreal.biz. Today's show was sponsored by Newbury Business Park, a Geauga County incubator for growing companies and business startups. Learn more at newburybizpark.com. The show's founder and host, Susan Swartzwelder, is a small business specialist. Tune in every Sunday from 6 to 7 p.m. as Susan and her guests share ideas and resources to help you start and grow the successful business of your dreams.